Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the IVES number FS452-4-10B. This is a kick-down door holder, is what it is. And this video is going to serve as visual review of the item, dimensional review of the item as well. This is a manual door holder. This is something that you're simply going to put onto a door because you want to keep it in the open position. I've also seen people install these on as a security device on a door that swings in, and they'll throw that down to help prevent people from pushing that door in. I have seen that in the past, there's no doubt. This is the 4 screw hole mount variant of IVES kick-down door holders. They have the 3-hole mount variant as well, which I think is more common. But when you see the 4-hole mount, that generally means that you're dealing with an item that's made of solid brass. Okay? And that is indeed what we're dealing with here. This is the 4-inch model. It is the shorter of the two available lengths. The 5-inch model is there as well. And what would determine the length of the arm goes to talk about, when your door is in the closed position, you should have a nice, tight, sealed off margin below your door. Well, when you open the door to 90 degrees, maybe that floor slopes away from that door. I'm thinking a commercial application exterior door. You want to have your man door open at 90 degrees when you're receiving packages because you have a door closer on there. Well, that concrete may pitch away. Well, now you're going to need to think about the length of that. You might try to get this size installed and find that the length of the arm itself is a bit short, so they make a 5-inch model as well. Other companies will make some that are obtusely long, but we're talking about IVES. So this is in the 10B finish. Okay, this is made of brass. This has a replaceable rubber tip that is screwed to down in the bottom. When you install this, you're going to want to make sure that your rubber tip makes full contact with the surface. I've seen them installed like this or like this, and they really prematurely wear that rubber tip down. If you feel like you have a tremendous amount of use on this unit, and you have a highly abrasive floor like concrete, you might want to consider replacement tips immediately to go along with the material. But that, where you'll see lots of uses on, if you go to in a strip mall, you'll have outlet locations for your package carriers. And if you're dropping off boxes, and they have constant flow of traffic like that, door open, closed all day long, that sort of application will wear out those rubber tips. Let's switch to the screen view and talk about this item. But before we do so, this is absolutely not for use on, on fire-rated doors at all. Fire-rated doors can't have any sort of concept of a manual hold-open. Fire doors must always be self-closing and self-latching and free-swinging. This would, of course, violate one of those cardinal rules when it comes to fire-rated doors. So be mindful. Don't put this on a fire-rated door at all. There are ways to hold open fire-rated doors that are code compliant, and this IVES manual holder, nor is any manual holder one of those methods. Let's switch to the screen view now. Okay, so this is the item that we are looking at. Generic stock image here. Extended description information here down below. And we'll go over the dimensions when we get back to the camera. This is for door-to-floor clearance of 2-inch or less, and it has a plate height of 2 1/8. That would be a reference to the to this. That's 2 1/8 is what they're talking about here. 1 inch wide. Units provide simple hold and release, activated with a touch of a foot. Sure, they're generally operated with your foot. Cast brass or aluminum. It would be, of course, the cast brass version. Stainless steel spring. I'll show that to you as well. There's a spring behind there that keeps the unit in the vertical position when you are not using the unit. Replaceable non-marring rubber shoes are available as each here or in packages of 100 here with corrugated bottoms to provide secure grip. That's true. Every so often, a client says that they have a highly polished floor and a door closer, and the unit does not hold the door open. That does happen. It's not very common, but I have heard of that. And you can replace those when they wear out. Packed with sheet metal screws, that's true. They appear to be a number 8 by 1 inch oval head machine screw. That's what it looks like. Now the cut sheet. Let's click on the cut sheet. Okay, here are our dimensional properties. And this is where your, generally what I find 4-inch and 5-inch to generally be a reference to about the vertical, the axis of pivoting down to about the edge of the arm. The IVES is being a bit more creative in the sense that they're showing you from the bottom of where you would mount the item to the bottom of the tip what that dimension is. So I would say that that's actually a pretty smart way of telling you that, because this is actually less important than knowing this. Where you're going to pierce through the door with a screw is a lot more important than where this random dimension is. So once you determine where you're going to place the darn thing on the door with that bottom screw, you'll then know you've got 3 1/16 or 3 7/8, and you'll decide on which model that you want. So that's a pretty smart way of going about doing that, in my opinion. It will more easily help you determine which model is appropriate. Okay, and maybe, obviously you can make this dimension move up and down to suit your requirements. You might have some feature on the door that you want to get up and over, or mount away from or on top of. Place door in position at point where it is to be held open to overcome difficulty of uneven floors. Place holder in position as shown, with rubber shoe of holder resting flat on the floor approximately 8 inches from the edge. That would be called your back set. Edge of the door to the center of your preparation. With holder in the proper position, mark your screw locations, drill for appropriate screws, and install. If door pivots are worn or have excess play, install holder so that the rubber shoe rests slightly on the heel. If door pivots are worn or have excessive play, okay. So what they're saying, install holder so that the shoe runs on the heel. What they're really saying there is, if you have a door, if you have your door pivots or hinges, and you could actually move that door up and down a little bit because there's clear and obvious wear on either the pivot hardware or your hinges, they want you to install the unit. They want you to install the unit so that you have it resting on the heel, because the concept is that when the door closer pushes the door, it's actually going to take this and actually move it upwards so that this will flatten out more against the floor. I think that's what they're driving at with that. Because what would ultimately end up happening is, if you didn't compensate for that worn hanging hardware, and of course replacing the worn hanging hardware, you would probably ultimately have a situation where you are resting on the nose a bit of your floor. Is probably what would end up happening. Okay. Door, and obviously you should replace that hanging hardware so it's not worn. Doors should be properly reinforced. Yeah, they're saying with a 3/16 minimum plate. That's a lot of steel in a steel door. You certainly want to have doors, if they're not reinforced, they should be through bolted. We ought to be able to help you come up with through bolts for this. If you feel it's necessary to through bolt the model, and given enough time with your foot working this. The foot is not the most elegant appendage when it comes to delicately working hardware. You might work those holes loose, especially if you've pre-drilled the holes a bit heavy, etc. But nonetheless, it needs to be reinforced or some compensation for that done. You should be able to through bolt that. And what I'm saying is, IVES makes their mail slots, and they have sex bolts or binder posts or through bolts for mail slots, or their crash chains as well, and I bet you could make those work with this. Okay. Now let's move back to the product brochure. And here are our two models, the FS452 and the FS455. Okay. The classic design of the 4 and 3 hole model, made in brass and aluminum base materials. There's also this 4 hole design, and that's just cast iron. You'll know that one because it's rough, it's very heavy, and it's inexpensive. If you want a cheap door holder, the FS454, the FS544 and FS555 would be a great option because they're just really inexpensive. You're not paying for the architectural material like you are on this. If you don't need solid brass, then don't order solid brass. If you want a 4 hole model and you need it to be in brass, well, you're going to be dealing with the solid brass base material. So our FS452-4, clearance of 2 inch or less and up to 3 inch on the 5 inch. Unit provides simple hold and release, activated, etc. Stainless steel spring, and we talked about the extended description. Other finishes, you can do polished brass as 605, satin brass as 606, satin bronze 612, 613 is oil rubbed bronze, 619 is satin nickel, 625 is polished chrome, and 626 is satin chrome. And aluminum is 628, and that base material is going to be aluminum as well. That will not only give you a piece of hardware that's lighter, but it's certainly noticeably less expensive. The 3 hole model, probably more common. Certainly more common in the aluminum base material. When you're looking for a commodity unit, inexpensive, the FS455 is going to be where you're going to be at on that. But you'll notice that they do not have a longer version. This would be equal to the 4 inch version. It's really about 3 5/8. So if you needed longer reach, you won't be working with the commodity FS455 and the however you can in that cast iron model. Okay. Now there is a link to the manufacturer's page here. Let's click on that and just quickly look and see what's going on the IVES page. Okay, so the link to the manufacturer's page will allow us to review not only all of the IVES products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to their full product catalog. And that's handy because you'll be able to see all of the items that IVES makes. The name IVES is not what it was in the 1990s, that's for sure, or 1980s. They used to be very heavily focused on builders' hardware in the sense of having trim and auxiliary hardware, but they have, since coming under the I'm not sure if they were under Ingersoll Rand. I imagine they were. But under Allegion, they are a part of a deployment of companies that provide total solutions in terms of product supplying for the entire door. What I'm driving at is you're going to get hinges from IVES. That wasn't the case many years ago. You're going to get pin and barrel hinges and continuous geared aluminum hinges from IVES. That wasn't the case many years ago. And you will find that a lot of the hardware that you may know IVES for, you can't get from IVES anymore. But they have a great line of pivots, commercial pivots. Why I say that they're great is because the installation instructions are relatively easy to wrap your head around if it's the first time you're looking at installation instructions for pivots. Other manufacturers will give you every dimension under the sun, and that's all important, but they give you all of that on one document. So if you have a hollow metal door and frame that's already prepped for pivot hardware, you don't care about any of those dimensions. And for the first time pivot person, it does seem to make it a bit intimidating to wrap your head around it. So take a look at their pivots if you get into that. And then they have their Harmon hinges, which we just scrolled past. That's a pocket pivot, also known as a Harmon, Harmon. That technology goes back certainly into the 19th century and is a super cool way to get a door open and completely out of the opening. And you will see these in hospitals all the time. So if you want to study what that bad boy is, look up Harmon hinge, or pocket door hinge, I suppose. But Harmon is the term that that you would easily find it under. door pulls, trim and auxiliary, flat goods, door stops, things of that nature. For fun, there's a couple of old catalogs here, really old. If you want to see what IVES was doing in 1896, well, there's the document. Not nearly as extensive as a catalog as it is today, but a lot of these items, you know, that IVES was once known for, you don't get from them anymore, but some of it you do. They'll still sell sash locks, but not these beautiful ornate sash locks. This is a we would need a time machine to go back and find these. Sash lifts, you can still buy these single finger sash lifts. Just neat. And this was trim hardware for residential applications is what IVES, shutter bars, you can still buy shutter bars, is what IVES was always known, you know, initially, at least to me. So let's wrap up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, I wanted to show you some of the dimensions. You'll notice that this little horn or elbow that's here, well, that's the spring back there, and as you bring that up, it'll force that spring to belly out a little bit, and it will then hold your unit in the vertical position. You know, it's kind of a drag. These springs do break. You know, you get a door with tens of thousands of uses, that spring's going to break. IVES tells you that that is stainless steel. I imagine they do so to mean, well, primarily because you're dealing with a non-ferrous item, except that screw down there is made of steel. But probably that stainless is going to be a durable piece of equipment there that won't rust after, you know, years of exposure. Then let's just hit on the dimensions really quick, because they don't give us, in that technical drawing, all of the dimensions. They did say 2 1/8. That appears to be the case, by 1 inch. Okay, the dimension from the axis of pivoting down to the bottom of the unit, that's really where our 4 inch is going to come in. Okay, so that's your 4 inch. But again, doesn't take into account necessarily where you're going to mount it. I mean, you could measure from here down to 4 inch, okay, but IVES is just giving it to you maybe from a more straightforward position here down to the end. And if you want to squeeze that out another 13/16, then go with the 5 inch version. Okay, little screwdriver will take that right out and allow you to replace it. And there you go. I'm partial to IVES. There are a lot of people in the world who make trim and auxiliary hardware. The name IVES is certainly synonymous with trim and auxiliary hardware. Their claim to fame could be the fact that they've been in business twice as amount of time as many of their competitors. They are under that umbrella of Allegion, and her sister companies would be Schlage, LCN, Von Duprin, Glenn Johnson, Zero. They have good technical support. I've spoken to their people a number of times, and if they don't, here's the thing, if they don't know the answer, they always get the answer, and they follow up to you with that answer, and you know, that's all you can ask for, and they do that very well. That's culture at Allegion that I find with technical support. Any questions on the IVES FS452 B10B in a 4 inch size or any other IVES product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.